Coming at number 10, we have Elvis's mother. It's no secret that Elvis had a deep-rooted mommy issue problem, which ultimately bled into his relationship with Priscilla. In her 1985 memoir, Elvis and Me, Priscilla picked up on Elvis's unshakable relationship with his mother, Gladys, who passed away in 1958. Priscilla would say, "I was to learn Elvis's mother Gladys was the love of his life." According to Express biographer Alma Nash, pointed out that Elvis's mother passed away coincided with him meeting Priscilla, which might have led to his obsession to turn her into Gladys. Elvis was looking for that young girl that he could mold into the very image of Gladys, and he had a knack for dressing up young women to resemble her. He would pick out their clothes, makeup, and show them how to style their hair, and this is why Priscilla was so perfect, is because she would do everything he wanted her to do because she was scared that if she didn't do it, some other woman would, and she wanted to be the one. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 9, makeup. During a November 2016 appearance on ITV's Loose Woman, Priscilla Presley would admit that Elvis would refuse to see her without makeup on, or even if she looked a bit disheveled. During an interview, Priscilla would say, "Some can't have the truth. I've always had a little bit of makeup. He never wanted to see me getting dressed. He wanted to see the end result." It wasn't until after the pair got divorced that Priscilla would notice that Elvis had been trying to transform her into the ideal woman. That's why he had strict rules on how her makeup should look and how she should dress when she was around him. Priscilla would even say later in an essay for People, something in his southern upbringing had taught him that the right girl was to be saved for marriage. "I was that girl." She would then claim that Elvis would try to mold her into his perfect woman, and she would wear clothes, hairstyle, and makeup of his careful choosing, and it took her years to finally understand who she was and to build a personality of her own. Coming at number 8, we have Scientology. Lisa Marie Presley was so traumatized by her father's passing after she discovered that he had passed away at the age of 9, she had to spend the next 35 years of her life trying to be cured by the Church of Scientology. According to claims by her former counsel, Karen de la Carriere, who was known as the Queen of Scientology as she was high-ranking member of the church for 35 years, she would say that Priscilla Presley turned to Scientology to alleviate the grief of Elvis's sudden passing in 1977. She used the church to help control her daughter's behavioral problems as well. While Elvis would never allow his daughter to join the church if he was still alive, after Priscilla joined the church after being recommended to join by John Travolta, she would then make Lisa Marie join as well, and Priscilla would even go on to force her to attend behavioral classes so she could get her daughter to fall back into line. Lisa Marie was a second-generation Scientologist who didn't want to go into Scientology in the first place, but was dragged into it because her parents were in it. She also didn't want to attend the courses, but she had to follow her mother's rules. Number 7, obedience classes. After Lisa Marie Presley started to act out after her father passed away, Priscilla was seeking out new ways to help gain control of her daughter, Lisa Marie. One of these methods was to let the Church of Scientology deal with her. By the age of 11 years old, Lisa would be dropped off at the Scientology Center for hours for obedience therapy and purification rundowns. This would reportedly consist of hot sauna sessions, exercise, and taking vitamins. Every day, Priscilla would be seen scowling when the big limousine would drive up to the Celebrity Center with a chauffeur and drop Lisa Marie off, as she was ordered to get out of the car to get into the church and straighten herself out. Lisa Marie had no choice but to attend the sessions, and every time she acted up, she would be dropped back off at the center. Priscilla would instruct the church to handle her, and Lisa Marie would be stuck at the center for hours and forced into conversion therapy and obedience therapy. Number 6. Can't talk to Elvis's friends. While Elvis might have been a fan of sexy outfits and heavy makeup for Priscilla, he was so allegedly quite jealous and possessive of her. He made it clear from the beginning that the Memphis Mafia was to keep their distance from Priscilla. Elvis's former bodyguard Sonny West would even say he made it clear that Priscilla was not to enter any room with other males that were present until Elvis was already there. Elvis also went to great pains to shield Priscilla from the public and sometimes even his friends. Any violation of the mandate let her in for a third-degree punishment. If she spent any time alone with any other man in Graceland, no matter how innocent it was, both she and him might be questioned about why they were in the same room together, what they talked about, and for how long? Elvis is said to have had a possessive attitude, and it's surprising with his own colorful dating history. If you are with Elvis, it was only him, but he could be with whoever he wanted. Doesn't make sense. Number 5, the secret children. Even though Elvis has been gone for many years, Elvis is still the center of several new scandals over the years, and one of them, hitting headlines, seems to claim that the king of rock and roll supposedly kept a secret of 7 of his children from the rest of the world. And over the years, the Presley family had to keep this a secret. While it's just been a speculation that Elvis does have other children, the National Enquirer would even state that they too believe Elvis may have 7 other children out there, as the tabloid has claimed that they have conducted a 2-year investigation into missing members of the Presley family, and the National Enquirer has even went as far to say that they have witness testimonies, check receipts, personal correspondence, birth certificates, and DNA tests that prove that the children belong to Elvis, and that they were kept away from Hollywood all this time. And the Presley family even kept this a secret from the world, and with the family being very quiet on the matter, it leaves you to wonder if the king actually does have any other children floating around out there. Number 4, school. When Elvis and Priscilla first started their relationship, it would continue upon his return to the United States, and Priscilla stayed in Germany with her parents. In 1960, Elvis would return to the United States, and during this time, him and Priscilla would stay in touch, and soon Elvis would plot a plan to have Priscilla come visit him at his Graceland home. During a school break, Priscilla joined Presley and his family. However, after ensuring Priscilla's parents she would remain in Memphis, and he reportedly took her to LA, and Elvis's friends would cover up for the king by sending the teen's parents postcards from Memphis to mislead them to cover his broken promise. After a 1962 Christmas visit, Presley would then urge to have Priscilla stay by his side, and he would assure Priscilla's mother and her stepfather that she would attend a Catholic school in Memphis and obtain a high school diploma. He also promised her parents he would live with his father off his Graceland property. However, after several nights of living with Elvis's father, she began spending more time at Graceland, and she would eventually move in permanently without her parents suspecting any wrongdoing, and they kept this a secret from her parents as they broke her parents' rules. Number 3, don't approach Elvis for photos. Anyone who had plans of dating Elvis had to follow 3 strict rules when it came to dating the king of rock and roll. The first rule that they would be given is that they were not allowed to ask to take pictures with the star, and they weren't even allowed to go around his Graceland property and snap pictures of themselves either. Elvis made this a strict rule as his girlfriends were meant to be his girlfriends, not fans. Elvis was a very private person, and if you were going to be with him, you had to be with him. Even if you were a fan, you had to put this all aside, otherwise he wouldn't want to be with you and he would just cut off communication with you completely. And if you thought any of Elvis's rules for dating him would be negotiated, they couldn't. Even if you thought you could spin things around and negotiate the rules, this wouldn't be the case, and Elvis would just end up ghosting you. Number 2, the golden rules. Elvis Presley had an affair with his on-screen lover Anne Margaret that turned into a romantic relationship. But when things got real and Priscilla Presley found out about their relationship, he was forced to break his one golden rule before marrying her. Elvis's life changed when he signed on to appear in Viva Las Vegas. At the time, he starred in a massive amount of movies that showed him singing, dancing, and courting women for the delight of his millions of fans. But then he met Anne Margaret and started to spend almost every waking moment with her. However, when other people started to get involved in their relationship, it would start to crumble. When Anne Margaret was in the UK promoting Viva Las Vegas, when she was asked about her relationship with the king of rock and roll, somehow she was misquoted in saying that she was secretly engaged to Elvis, and this would lead to Elvis to break one of his most important rules, which is if you're caught in the act, never admit to it. This would be the time Elvis would come clean to Priscilla, who was furious, and he would then decide it was time to take their relationship to the next step, and he married Priscilla as he previously promised Priscilla's parents he was going to marry her one day, and being a man of his word, he did, and he ended up ghosting Anne Margaret for not following his other golden rule, which is to keep his name out of the press. Number 1, stay with Elvis at all times. So recently, Elvis's ex-girlfriend Mindy Miller exposed Elvis in an interview when she stated that he had 3 non-negotiable rules for his girlfriends that they had to follow, and they were set out by his Memphis mafia. One of the rules any woman in Elvis's life had to follow was that you had to be present with Elvis and watch him at all times. Mindy would go on to say, if he got up in the middle of the night and he didn't sleepwalk, he just wanted to watch TV or something, to eat, whatever it was, you had to watch him. 2 words. Watch him. She would also go on to say, I, unlike other girlfriends, didn't consider it a part of the job. It was delight for me. He was my boyfriend. I didn't look at him as Elvis Presley. I fell in love with the man I met. If Elvis wanted something to eat, Mindy would go downstairs to the kitchen with him and he would call one of the maids to bring something up. Either way, anything that was going on, whether Elvis was to leave or go to bed, Mindy or any of his other girlfriends would have to stick by his side, and they would even have to study and read the Bible and spiritual books together. Coming at number 10, we have her rocky relationship with Lisa Marie Presley. While the world has begun reeling in the aftermath of Lisa Marie Presley's tragic passing, many have begun to ask questions about her family life. In particular, it seems like people are increasingly curious about what her relationship with Priscilla Presley was like. While the two were thick as thieves before Lisa's passing, the two faced their fair share of ups and downs. It's said that Lisa Marie had a very rocky relationship with Priscilla due to her troubles and breakdown of her relationship with Michael Lockwood. The pair was sadly only able to repair their relationship after Lisa Marie's son passed away on July 12, 2020. But before, it seems like Lisa Marie's estrangement to her mother would come when she decided to divorce Michael Lockwood, and her mother, Priscilla, actually chose to stand by him even after Lisa Marie claimed to have found illegal videos and photos of on Michael Lockwood's computer. While sources say Priscilla had to be comforted by her friends as her relationship between her and Lisa fell apart, this is when she felt lost over what to do at the time. But she would have never had a rocky relationship with Lisa if she just chose to stand by her daughter like a mother should always do. Number 9. Her love for Elvis Presley. When Elvis Presley broke up with his wife Priscilla Presley in 1973, the couple remained really close until his passing, and later Priscilla Presley would admit that she never stopped loving him even after he passed away unexpectedly just years after their divorce. And even his passing made her realize that she didn't want to live in a world without him. It's even been said that after their divorce, the pair actually walked out of the courthouse holding hands. Priscilla and Elvis would split after his substance abuse and affairs got way too out of hand, but their relationship kept intact, and they still spoke to one another frequently. To this day, Priscilla's love for Elvis is so strong that she can't even be in the same room as Elvis impersonators when they are dressed up as the star, as it's too hard for her. Back in 2014, when Priscilla Presley was set to attend Elvis Festival in Collingwood, Ontario, she agreed to do the event, but there was one huge rule for the festival that they would have to follow in order to have her attend, and this rule would be that Elvis impersonators couldn't be in the same room as her. However, when one did come into the event not dressed up as Elvis, as he was following the rules, Priscilla would be left feeling very emotional as he reminded her of Elvis, and she would even praise the festival for keeping Elvis's story alive. Hey my little peaches, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Number 8. Her life at 14. Elvis and Priscilla's relationship was much darker than what even some of the biggest fans may have realized. Even those who already casually knew that Priscilla was quite young when she met Elvis may still don't know what the pair's relationship was like when they began their courtship. Priscilla was only 14 years old and Elvis was 24, and the details of their courtship may not be front of mind. Written in Priscilla Presley's own words for People in 1985, the specific story on how the king of rock and roll met and wooed his only wife may be hard for some fans to stomach. Priscilla and Elvis met back in 1959 when her family settled in a small town in Germany, and Priscilla was invited to a party by a family friend. It would be at this party she would meet Elvis and tell him that she was in the 9th grade. It would be at this moment that he would tell her she was just a baby. However, a few nights later, he would tell Priscilla that he wanted to be alone with her and asked her to come to his bedroom. While the two would spend the night together, they would end up seeing each other for months, and they would continue to spend every night together, which proved to be too much for the student as her grades would start to slip. While Priscilla claimed that they never made love, her parents became very confused and bewildered about her relationship with Elvis, and it took a lot for them to prove that it was proper and platonic. At number 7, Homewrecker. Since Elvis was 24 years old and a famous worldwide performer, it's probably not too much of a surprise that Elvis was in a relationship with someone else when he met Priscilla. Before there was Priscilla, Elvis was actually dating actress Anita Wood, who he began dating in 1957, and the relationship was actually pretty serious. When Anita did an interview with the Daily Express, she would say he swore he loved me, how we would get married, how there was no one everyone else, how I need to stay true to him and remain and wait for him, how he was afraid I would not. Anita would also say that she wasn't allowed to visit Elvis while he was in Germany, and that the two were still together when Elvis returned to the United States in 1960. By then, Anita already started to hear the rumors about Priscilla, and that Elvis was constantly telling her that it was nothing to be worried about. Anita would then eventually confront Elvis about the nature of his relationship with Priscilla, and the singer asked her to keep Priscilla a secret because he believed he would get in a lot of trouble over his relationship with the young girl. While Anita would go on to date Presley for 2 more years, he would have Priscilla flown out to the States and he would begin dating both women. When Anita found out that Elvis was having a hard time making up his mind about the 2 women, Anita would overhear the conversation Elvis was having with his father, and she would make the decision to leave the star. Number 6. Experimenting with substances. After Priscilla met Elvis when he was stationed in Germany on military service, she described how they had a very passionate relationship, so when he was discharged and set to return home, Priscilla did everything she could to persuade her parents to let her go to America. Her parents would then only agree when she agreed that she would live in a separate property and go to school. While Priscilla did go to school, she spent all of her free time day and night at Graceland. In a powerful interview with Barbara Walters in 1985, Priscilla would recall the intense and strange world she lived in with Elvis as a young teenager. Priscilla would stay up late every night, and every morning Priscilla would get up for high school, and then when she arrived home in the afternoon, she would crawl back in bed with Elvis. Eventually, after Priscilla's grades started to slip, she had to start taking sleeping medication to help her sleep. Priscilla felt like she had to make things work with Elvis because she was scared that if she didn't do it, another woman would, and she wanted to be the one. She would even bring up a horrifying moment when Elvis gave her 2 strong medications to help her sleep, and that even when she was unconscious, Elvis didn't call a doctor because he didn't realize that she's never taken them before and gave her too much of a strong dose, even after she was passed out for 2 days. As Elvis's behavior became more extreme, the couple would spend days in bed. Number 5. Living doll. When Elvis Presley started dating Priscilla Presley when she was just 14 years old, as the relationship started to grow, the king of rock and roll would start to dictate how she had to dress and told her that she didn't need an education. While Priscilla did everything she could to be with Elvis, she felt like she was his living doll while she was living with him in Graceland, away from her family. While Priscilla went on to lose her identity throughout the relationship with Elvis, she would also lose her individuality. Later in life, Priscilla would call herself Elvis's doll, his own living doll to fashion as he pleased. In an interview was expressed, she would also state that Elvis frowned upon chip nail polish and patterned dresses, and he insisted that Priscilla would look better with long hair and that she needed to apply more makeup around the eyes to make them stand out, as her eyes were too plain naturally, and that he liked a lot of makeup as it defined her features. Elvis would also go on to teach her how to walk, how to dress, how to apply makeup, wear her hair, how to behave, and how to return his love in his way. Number 4. strict mother. Before Lisa Marie Presley passed away, she would admit that as a parent, her father, Elvis Presley, was a lot of fun. However, she's also spoken out about the worries concerning her famous father. Mainly that as a child, she felt like she needed to protect him and keep him safe. Priscilla Presley previously has also admitted that when it came to parenting, Lisa Marie, she was often put in the role of being the one who had to set the rules. While Priscilla sat down with an interview with The Guardian, she would say, "I was the disciplinarian. And there were times Lisa didn't like it, but you can't live life without boundaries. I was very subtle and very calm, and she knows this now." Priscilla would also add in the interview that Lisa Marie was only 4 years old when her parents divorced. So she would have to work hard to ensure that her daughter understood that everyone could still get along. Number 3, the affair. It's clear that Elvis and Priscilla's marriage wasn't all glitter and gold. While it's said that Elvis had multiple affairs that put a major strain on his relationship with Priscilla behind the scenes, Priscilla also had an affair when she was still married to Elvis. While the age difference and controlling nature of their relationship took a toll on Priscilla, ultimately she decided that she needed an outlet, as there were times she didn't even feel like she was a person because Elvis was always the concerned person, as he came first and no one cared about her feelings, or what she was going through. Ultimately, Priscilla eventually started to seek out the company of another man during her 10-year marriage. In the book Elvis and Me, Priscilla would allege that her ex-husband had affairs during their marriage. Despite that, Elvis reportedly became incredibly angry when he discovered that Priscilla had an affair of her own. She would also go on to say that she was dating fitness instructor Mike Stone when she was still married to Elvis, and added that her husband had a big reaction when he found out. It would later be revealed that Elvis was so angry he even tried to get his entourage to hire a hitman to get Mike. Number 2. Stole custody of Lisa Marie Presley's kids. Priscilla Presley's daughter Lisa Marie Presley was a mom to 4 children, Benjamin, Riley, and twins Finley and Harper, when Lisa Marie ended up locked in an incredibly difficult custody battle with her ex-husband Michael Lockwood for quite some time. It said that Priscilla even had custody of Lisa's twins Finley and Harper as the custody battle dragged on. In 2017, Priscilla would reveal on ABC News that the twins had been living with her for some time, and she would go on to say it's still very family-oriented environment for them. It's been over 9 months. They're great. They're doing wonderful. They're living a great life. They see both parents, and we'll see what happens. At the time, the California Department of Children and Family Services was involved in the care of the twins, and the move came after Lisa Marie filed claims of sexual misconduct against Michael Lockwood. And coming in number 1 today, we have saved Elvis's fortune. Just after Elvis Presley unexpectedly passed away in 1977, his net worth was a surprising $5 million, which is much lower than most people would expect, and much lower than what he earned in his lifetime. With his estate being left to his daughter, grandmother, and father after the passing of Elvis's father and grandmother, Lisa Marie Presley was left as the sole beneficiary of Elvis's estate. Priscilla then served as the executor of Elvis's estate until Lisa Marie's 25th birthday. During this time, she devised a plan to rebuild the late singer's fortune, giving her daughter an extremely comfortable lifestyle and future. While some pressed Priscilla to sell Graceland for liquidation purposes, she opted to turn the home into a tourist attraction with the help of Jack Soden. She also worked to buy the surrounding properties around Graceland, making sure they became stores that sold Elvis's merchandise, and eventually rebuilt Elvis's estate into a massive fortune.
Number 10. Germaphobe. While speaking to Jonathan Ross in a 2015 interview, Priscilla Presley revealed that her late ex-husband was terrified of germs and would take his phobia to the extreme. She claimed that he even refused to use anyone else's silverware, which even included the ones at high-end restaurants. She said that because of his secret germophobia, he never liked to go to other people's homes to eat because he would have to take his own silverware, and that would often cause quite an uncomfortable situation, as you could imagine. Quote, and he didn't like drinking out of cups that other people had drunk out of, even restaurants or other people's homes. So when he drank, he would drink where the handle was, knowing that no one would ever drink at that side. Although this information is not widely known, Priscilla says Elvis has been that way ever since he was a child. She believed that he just didn't like to put his mouth where other people had put their mouth, especially with cutlery and dishes, which is definitely something most people wouldn't have known about the star. Number 9. Liked younger women. In her book Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley wrote that she just turned 14 when she met Elvis Presley, who was 24 years old at the time and already an international superstar. Despite the scandal, they started an intimate courtship that lasted 7 years before they eventually married in 1967. Now, the age difference is creepy on its own, but it becomes even creepier when you compare that to what Linda Thompson wrote in her own memoir. Thompson, who dated Elvis after his marriage to Priscilla ended, was also very young and inexperienced at the time. In fact, he allegedly told her, quote, I want to preserve you for as long as you need. Whatever he meant by that, it just sounds super icky. Elvis reportedly took advantage of his power to manipulate young, impressionable fans whenever he went on tour. Joel Williamson, who wrote a historical book about Elvis, claimed that 2 years before he met his future wife, the star took a group of 3 girls with him on tour for the purpose of, quote, pillow fights, tickling, and cuddling. Number 8. His vanity. Fame is a terrible drug that often pushes stars into the oddest methods of trying to stay thin and beautiful. Linda Thompson wrote in her memoir that Elvis's obsession with being slim would drive him to bizarre measures to keep the weight off, including an alleged 2-week period of sedation. That's exactly what it sounds like. Elvis mainly slept all day except for brief periods where he woke up long enough to go to the bathroom and eat a small portion of food before being sedated again and going back to sleep. She also claimed that he regularly did crash diets on just 500 calories a day. She also exposed his secret about why he constantly wore shirts with high collars. Apparently, he did it to conceal his neck, which he actually hated. She wrote that the whole reason he wore the trademark style was to keep his, quote, skinny little chicken neck hidden from the public. Then at age 40, Elvis allegedly opted for a facelift. Quote, there has been speculation through the years that Elvis has his eyes done or some other mystery procedure, but that mini facelift was the extent of his plastic surgery. Well, it seems like his ex-wife was really intent on revealing a side of him that was incredibly vain. Number 7. Pet chimpanzee. This one is really messed up. Billy Smith, who was a member of Elvis's entourage, openly talked about how Scatter, Elvis's pet chimpanzee, was essentially used as a party favor that they trained to harass women. It said that the chimp would often look for women at parties and grab onto their clothes. According to Smith, Scatter also drank heavily. Quote, he could down a fifth of liquor before you knew it. Smith remembered another time when Scatter was beaten by a woman at a party for misbehaving. There have been conflicting reports about what really happened to the chimp. Some state that he merely lost his life due to old age, but Smith speculated that Scatter was poisoned by one of the maids who was tasked with feeding him after he was abandoned by Elvis and the crew who were out on the road. Although it's unclear exactly how he passed, it appears as though Scatter took his last breath on his own after years of living the party lifestyle. The whole thing was really rather sad, as it seemed like Elvis and his friends used the chimp just to entertain themselves and discarded him when they went on tour. Number 6. Attacked his fiance. After Linda Thompson, Elvis briefly dated Mindy Miller before becoming involved with Ginger Alden, who was a full 20 years younger than him. It was only 2 months into their relationship when Elvis proposed to her and she accepted. The couple planned to walk down the aisle just a few months before Elvis's untimely death, and Alden even said how excited he was about their wedding and their future together as a couple. She revealed to Express that during his final days, quote, Elvis was looking forward to many things: marriage, more children, serious films, and his next tour. But Elvis was reportedly very manipulative when it came to women and could be extremely jealous and controlling. According to sources close to the star at the time, he could get very violent. His treatment of her was horrifying, and the pair constantly argued during their time together. After one particular fight, he allegedly asked someone in his entourage to pop the tires on Alden's car so she couldn't leave his home. And on another occasion, when she was driving away after an argument, Elvis reportedly aimed his weapon at her car and fired. Number 5. Allegations of racism. Last year, Quincy Jones revealed to The Hollywood Reporter that he always refused to work with Elvis because he was a racist. The musician, best known for producing Michael Jackson's albums Thriller, Off the Wall, and Bad, made the comments about Elvis's supposed history of racism in his new interview. The outlet asked Jones about Presley after the producer compared Jackson to the king of rock and roll. The 88-year-old musician and producer described a time when he was writing for the orchestra leader Tommy Dorsey in the 50s, and Elvis came in saying, quote, I don't want to play with him. Jones went on to call Elvis a racist and added, quote, but every time I saw Elvis, he was being coached by Otis Blackwell, telling him how to sing. And while there wasn't an overwhelming amount of accusations surrounding Elvis's past racism, there are certainly many allegations against the icon for appropriating black culture and repackaging it to the general public as his own. Despite this, it's obvious that American society still allowed him to have a very successful career, whether it was something the late singer did consciously or subconsciously. Number 4. Hidden children. Even though he has been gone for many years, Elvis Presley has always been the center of several new scandals and controversies. One of the many that have hit the headlines in the last few years is that the king of rock and roll supposedly kept hidden children from the rest of the world. The National Enquirer actually conducted a 2-year investigation into the hidden children of the Presley family, reportedly acquiring witness testimonies, checking receipts, mail correspondence, birth certificates, and even DNA tests. The result of the investigation allegedly proves that Elvis did have several additional children that were being kept away from the spotlight of Hollywood. In fact, multiple alleged mothers of Elvis's hidden children have come forward to tell their stories about how they met the star, and the stories have some strange similarities. One example is Desiree Romaine Presley, who is the daughter of Lucy DeBarban, and she claims that her mother was in a 24-year-long relationship with Elvis and was being kept away from the media. But the crazy thing is that Desiree's father is listed as Randolph Presley on her birth certificate, someone who allegedly worked at the Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. Number 3. Addicted to medication. It's not unheard of for celebrities to turn to substances as a way to cope with fame and just how crazy their lives become in the spotlight. But Elvis's alleged addictions could have had a very different origin when you look at the tragedy of his mother's passing. In 1958, he was drafted into the US Army, went to Germany, but had to return to the US less than 6 months later because of his mother's untimely death. Many people believe that this marked the beginning of the end for Elvis, who quickly headed down a path of self-destruction. As soon as he returned to Germany, it's reported that Elvis partied heavily and would often get into fights. During this time, he also started taking illegal substances to try and deal with the grief of losing his mother. This probably snowballed, and it's assumed that from that moment on, the misuse of substances played a major role in his life. Linda Thompson wrote several examples in her memoir about these incidents and says that she often found Elvis passed out in a bowl of chicken noodle soup under the influence of sedatives. She even says that doctors tried to hospitalize him for 2 weeks after misusing a combination of medication for far too long. Number 2. Why Priscilla ended things. Because she was only 14 years old when their courtship began, it's really no surprise that she missed out on a huge chunk of her adolescence. She told Jonathan Ross in 2015, quote, "I was kind of lost, really, in who I was earlier in my life. I really didn't have teenage years." After their first child, Lisa Marie, was born, Priscilla accused Elvis of not wanting to sleep with her after she had given birth. Elvis told her that he wanted her to recover, but Priscilla later wrote in her memoir that he had mentioned before they were married that he had never been able to make love with a woman who'd had a child. In fact, throughout their marriage, Elvis continued to cheat on Priscilla with other women, and she herself had her own affair with an owner of a dance studio. It's safe to say that their marriage never really recovered. They finalized their divorce in 1973, and she said that this was because her life was his life, which meant her problems were always going to be secondary. Years later, she admitted that she did not divorce him because she didn't love him, but because she had to find out about the world. She was clearly just way too young when they started seeing each other. Number 1. Erratic violence. In recent years, Linda Thompson has been pretty open about her time with Elvis Presley, stating, quote, "We all knew how dangerous Elvis's rage could be. Apparently, when she first noticed Elvis could get pretty angry was when someone reportedly stole personal photos of one of his ex-girlfriends with another woman. She claimed that he then decided to show off his samurai sword collection while under the influence of illegal substances and left her fearing for her life. Although she said that he was true to his word and he didn't in fact hurt her, she was concerned because his talents were entirely impaired due to the narcotics. These were just some of the several times that his ex said that she worried about his boiling rage. Apparently, the musician even invested in a concealed carry permit to take the weapons on stage with him, including several that were actually stuffed into his shoes, just in case someone got a little bit too rowdy in the crowd. Even singer Tom Jones spoke about Elvis's love of weapons during a visit to his dressing room. Tom said that he noticed a loaded weapon just sat on the side and simply handed it to Elvis by wrapping it in a towel. Sounds a little crazy to me.